Welcome to Impact the World, and today we are doing a special encore show. So, in summer of 2020, I got to meet Kyle Gray for the first time for the purposes of the interview. I'd known Kyle for many years, as you'll hear me explain, and had admiration for who he was, but I just loved meeting him and his spirit. And he's been an incredible pioneer from a very young age around his work in the world. And one of the things that we talk about in this interview is his book, Raise Your Vibration, which is his most popular book worldwide. And interestingly, as we come to release this encore show, in July of 2022, a new edition of Raise Your Vibration just came out. So you can follow the links underneath this video to not only go to Kyle's website, but we'll also put a link to Raise Your Vibration. And I hope you enjoy meeting Kyle. Kyle, thank you so much for being with us today. And I was just saying to you right before we got started that we've never met before. I mean, we've had some messages over the last few years online, but we've never actually been either in person or on video. So this is a treat. Yeah. And I was saying to you that I started doing readings in 2004, so 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was about 2006 I started putting work on YouTube and online. And it was really quickly after that I saw you out there. I mean, it must have been 2006, 7 or 8. And I remember I was like, wow, who's this cool angel guy? And you were really young. And I mean, you're still young compared to me because there's 12 years between us. But I remember really being struck by just the uniqueness of your youth and your certainty with your gift. And it was a really cool thing just to see you out there doing something very different with confidence. And so I'm curious first, before we kind of dive deep into things, you've been doing this work now publicly for how long?
So my business is 16 years old this year. Yeah, I think it is. So quite a long time, yeah.
Yeah, so we have the same years. So how old were you when you started then? You must have been 16.
I started doing readings when I was 16. And it wasn't full time, you know. I was a high school dropout, just so you know. I'm quite proud of that. And I walked out of school at 15 and I just got a job in a hairdresser's, sweeping up hair and shampooing very badly. And I had to wait until I was 17 to officially start my business at the time. So I just got a number of jobs just to keep me going. And then when I was 17, I went through the Scottish Enterprise, which is like an entrepreneurial set up by the government. And I went through their business courses to learn how to start an official business. And I've been doing it ever since then.
So your gift, when did that start? Because that was really young for you, wasn't it? That it was just there for you.
So I call it a skill rather than a gift. Just more because I think everyone can do it. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, totally.
It's like a muscle, you know, you just learn how to grow it. But I started really young. I had a virus when I was 4 years old called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And it's an autoimmune virus that attacks the nervous system. And I was paralyzed for just over a year. Wow. And at the same time as me having Guillain-Barré syndrome, my grandmother had stage 4 lymphoma cancer. So we're both in wheelchairs, both in the same home at the same time. It was very interesting to look back at. But we created this incredible bond. And it was right around that time my sensitivity level started to shift. Because I couldn't walk or get up and go from one room to the other, I could kind of sense beyond the room. And then as the year went on, my grandmother's health deteriorated really badly and my health naturally improved. Mm. So he thought I had meningitis for about 6 months, and then my health started to shift. And I remember one night, I'll never forget this week as long as I live. It was the week school started. And my grandmother was moved to hospital. I remember getting this Ninja Turtles lunch box and being obsessed with it. And I remember my parents going to the hospital to be my nana, and then I went to bed. A neighbor put me to sleep that night, and I woke up for the night. And my grandmother was back home, and she flipped me on my belly and tickled my back, and it was so nice. And I remember just feeling so loved. And then the next morning, I went looking for my grandmother, and I couldn't find her anywhere. So I told my mum, "Where's Nana? Like, like she came into my room last night and she tickled my back when I was sleeping." And my mum just couldn't put two and two together. But it turns out she'd actually passed away that night. And that was like my initial awakening.
Yeah.
And it was quite a traumatic week when I look back, because there's no resentment or anything now, but my father was also caught having an affair that week. My grandmother passed away. I was starting school, and then my mum had a bit of a nervous breakdown. So there was this like weird week, and it kind of like catapulted me from this realm to the other.
Totally. Yeah, shattering of the world you knew to open up the other one.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you were 5?
I was 4, so I was about four and a half. And then basically from then onwards, just weird stuff would start to happen. And, I had these migraine headaches that ended up lasting 11 years. And the doctors, like my parents obviously had spent a lot of time in a children's hospital because I had Guillain-Barré syndrome, and the doctors had just thought this is an after effect of having nerve damage, of just like not having, being able to walk and all these different things. And so I was tried on like every medication you can imagine. And then at that time, numbers, like additives was a big topic in health. And a specific doctor said it's obviously candy and numbers or, all these different things. So my parents took me off like all sugar, all candy, and I got even more sensitive, even more aware, like petting people's dead dogs. I was like talking to dogs that no one else could see. So they started putting me back on all the candy. So yeah, there was just lots of weird happenings. And then my mum accidentally ended up going to like a session with a medium. Like her friend was hosting our next door neighbor hosting a medium, and my mum was like a mobile hairdresser at the time, and she said, "This medium's just arrived at my house," and she says, "I'm looking for Diane. Her mother Agnes is here to talk about her blue-eyed boy." And my mum was like, "What do you mean?" My mum was like, cutting someone's hair, and they called her on one of those massive phones that we used to get. And my mum rushed to this psychic, and then the woman was like, "Your son is going to be like me when he grows up." And she said, "You'll come off of she said this weird prediction. It was so strange. "You'll come off of a cruise ship, and his face will be on a national newspaper." And it happened. And it was just so weird. The Daily Mail called me the youngest medium in the UK when I was 17 years old. And they plastered my photograph in the middle of this. And we had just come back from a cruise holiday together, my mum and I. So it was really, weird. And
that's brilliant. My parents read that paper, although I wasn't living with them at the time, but that's how I knew you. It's like, and that's how you were in Britain at the time, kind of put out there. And what was so fascinating to me about that was we didn't see that. And I tell you what I remember about you, although I don't know if I really clued in on this at the time, but now I look back, often in the press or in conversation and in societal programming, there is like a kickback reaction against anything outside the norm, supernatural, medium is, there's this programming that people go, "Oh, that's crazy." It's almost like you're supposed to reject it, disassociate from it, distrust it. I don't remember any of that around you in the press coverage. And I think that was what was different. Like, I'm not maybe you experienced some of that, but the way you were presented, and perhaps it was your youth, there was always something very innocent about it that was very magnetic. And clearly that's partly you, but there was also something about you that was very accepted, which was kind of cool to me at the time. I was like, wow, this is different.
Yeah, well, I will be honest, it was actually very positive initially in a lot of these newspapers, and to go from there, and then I ended up writing at the Sun newspaper for 5 years as like a columnist. They called me the Angel Whisperer at the time. You know, just to think I ended up writing in these very right-wing newspapers about very progressive ideas, very, you know, otherworldly ideas, and not being edited or watered down. I was like writing about, you know, higher chakras and all these crazy ideas, and it seemed to just work.
That's fantastic. Like, if anything, you know, it's like, because often in our field, you can, you know, as they say, can be preaching to the choir a lot of the time. So how brilliant that, you know, you were like the Trojan horse that managed to get into those papers. And also, I don't know about you, Kyle, the one thing I've noticed is, you know, I was very nervous to go public as a channeler, and luckily for me, it happened very slowly. And channeling was a very fringy world, and it wasn't anything I really knew existed until I got taken into it because of the work I was doing. But I was a little protected in a way. But I think the thing that I was struck by was how many supposedly ordinary people, people who had very ordinary jobs, like CEOs of big companies, people who would not have talked about their spirituality to their friends, would literally come up and grab me by the arm and go, I don't tell anybody this, but I get messages from my guides too, and it's how I run my company. So it was kind of like this, you know, like this covert thing. So I think the reason it's, you know, I think for people who perhaps don't overtly talk about it or explore it, because it's in us, we are souls, we are spirits. I think there is a natural interest, and I think there is, the lights go on inside you when you come into contact with somebody who is either the right kind of person for you, the right kind of way of experiencing spirit, the right kind of language or form. And so, again, I just go back to that. There was an innocence with you that partly was youth and partly, I think, was the angelic frequency that allowed you to kind of do that, which is great.
I genuinely believe that it's almost like the angels kind of set everything up and were like, if you want to do this, like, we'll totally roll with it. Yeah. And I remember having this conversation, even when I was so young, I was like 16 or 17. I'm like, okay, are you going to do this? Because I ended up like doing lots of TV as well back then. And, you know, like being the psychic on these like shows on, you know, ITV and doing all these things. And I remember just having this conversation with myself, like, are you going to do this? Like, do you feel okay with doing this? And I remember feeling, you know what, this is just an opportunity to be unapologetically yourself. And I think that's what's been really helpful for me, is that I've never held back with what I do. Like, people will say, like, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I speak to angels. And they're like, what? You know, and it's never been, oh, I don't question it. I just say it. And if someone's not ready to like receive that, then that's okay. But I'm not going to water down my life, you know, because it really is a life you choose when you do this work. You know, it's like it becomes your world. And the one cool thing about it, I was thinking about it earlier on, is I have all the same best friends since school. Like,
that's cool.
Same circle, same group. Like, best friend's a corporate banker. You know, my other friend works for Apple, and like we all have our very own lives. And even though my life is slightly different from theirs, there's like a complete acceptance. And I think that's also because I've been okay with what I do.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that, I think, you know, often the mirrors in society that we have of our own discomfort. Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, negative comments. It's like, you know, I don't think anybody loves having a bunch of negative comments at them. I don't necessarily think there are many people who are like, whoa, loads of, but I think when they get under your skin, it's always worth investigating. It's like, oh, what part of me believes that? Or that's in me, and this person is giving me a gift of letting me get into the seed of it in myself by, you know, taking that little arrow they sent and finding the wound that it's located in me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So your publisher, sent me this, and it arrived yesterday.
Oh, he
and
did?
It's your Raise Your Vibration book. I love how shiny it is because it arrived. I wasn't expecting the shine. I have seen this book out there on your website because you put it out there a couple of years ago, didn't you? I think
2016.
So number one, it's 111 practices to increase your spiritual connection.
Yeah.
And Kyle, you have 7 books, is that right?
Yeah.
And you have beautiful card decks too. I've seen the artwork on your card decks.
One of them on its way to you, so it might arrive.
Thank you.
soon.
I know you told me that was coming. I'm thrilled because the artwork's really stunning. But I wanted to ask you because this book is Raise Your Vibration 111 Practices. One thing I noticed, because we're on each other's social media, a few years ago, you really got into fitness as one of your big practices, and you really started sharing about that. And I was curious how that has changed your vibration and your foundation.
Yeah, I think like most people, sounds terrible, like most people, but a lot of people in the spiritual world, I was very all mind, very all soul, but not enough body.
Yeah.
And there was somewhere along the journey where there was a complete disconnect from my physical being. And I noticed when I look back at my earlier times, I think I was, interested in raising consciousness and the idea of ascension and all these different things. But what I've come to understand is that for me, it's not about going beyond the body, but actually arriving within. Like the deeper we arrive in ourselves, like the deeper we actually get to know the voice of our soul. And somewhere along the way, I felt there was a disconnect. I had got very overweight and fit, and it wasn't a problem for other people, but it felt like a problem for me. And I started first with yoga. Like it became just, I wanted to try it, and it became something that I enjoyed. And then I realized that when I was doing this stuff for my body, like when I came to do the mind and the soul stuff, like there was like a synergy, there was like a connection, there was a clarity is a great word. There was this feeling of openness and a vastness, and I wanted more of it. And it kind of became a bit of an addiction now, and then, I ended up going so deep down the yoga path. Like I ended up being in India practicing, ashrams and doing like very long sadhanas and like going really deep into it. And then I realized that I actually started to use the yoga practice as a sabotage towards my body again. And I had to investigate that, the style of yoga I was practicing is all about, when you master one pose, your teacher will then give you the next. And some of these poses were, full on contortion.
Right.
And I'm a Scotsman, like I'm 6'1", 42 inch chest, I'm a bit.
No, you're solid. You're solid. I've seen you doing your workouts. Yeah.
So when someone's asking you to put 2 legs behind your head and then bind your arms around it, I was like, hold on, like I can do this, but is it making me happy? So I kind of pulled back on that, and I ended up finding myself doing functional fitness and weightlifting, and now I do everything: cycling, hiking, running. I do it all about it. But I'll tell you this: for me, it's more for pleasure. It's not to like change anything. It's more just to arrive in myself in a deeper way.
Yeah.
And like there just really is something about movement that really shifts something for me, so I think I got to one end of the spectrum, and I've finally found like a nice balance.
It's cool.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because there's a resonance for me with you, because it was 3 years ago that I really committed to fitness in a different way, and a bit like, I'd kind of done different things all my life, but often it was either to change something or because I thought I should. And it was about 3 years ago that I was like, no, I need to do this for strength and for my sense of kind of grounding in the world. Because like you, I had my very out there period, especially when I went deep into the channeling. And I also started to notice in the spiritual community this, well, twofold. Number one, the leaving of the body, or number two, the never being able to return to the body since some kind of trauma had taken you out. And so spirituality became the kind of safe place. But then you weren't, it's like spirituality or ascension eventually asks you to return to your body. And if you don't, it starts to hurt. So it's like maybe you got out your body because of trauma, but if you stay out your body for too long, the trauma will get really intense, because at a certain point we have to come back in and heal. So yeah, I too have found the kind of the commitment to fitness for the purpose of strength in a very holistic way has been a real game changer for me.
Plus, it's super cool, like just putting something heavy above your head. Like, I think that's so fun.
Yeah, totally.
I got that up there, you know, or like doing a handstand push-up. Like, that's fun.
So one of the things that I know you have become very known for around the world is your writing. I mean, I know there are many different things that you do, but I have it here that you have 60 plus international publishing deals, and maybe since that was written, it's kind of more than that now. So what is the process of writing like for you when you craft a book or an article? How does that look for you?
You know, I'll be really honest. I'm so linear. There's a bit of A-type personality in me. I genuinely kind of fit into doing things in a routine and by schedule. It feels good to me. So like, I meditate at the same time every night, to the same amount of time, to the same music. Like, I've got this little thing. So when I'm writing, I actually create like a linear structure plan of what I'm going to do and when I'm going to write it. And I follow it pretty neatly, and it works. So that's genuinely how it works. But I'll tell you why it works. It feels to me that a lot of my work is spiritually inspired, you know, and I do feel angels around me when I'm doing it. And it feels like I'm not just making an appointment with my MacBook to make this thing happen. It feels like it's like a commitment from my soul to the angels. Like, I'll be there then. Let's show up together, you know? And it really does work for me. And I only write in 4-hour windows, and it's just so lovely. And I'll say, okay, that's me. I'm going in, and that everyone knows that that's an undisturbed time where I will be creating something in 4 hours. But I'll like, you know, create 6,000 words in a day. Just like,
so you will write for like 4 hours.
I will go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's really a great process. I'm doing that right now. Actually, I'm writing a book. It's due in September. And I did that this morning. It was a brilliant experience today. Lots came out.
Are we allowed to know what the book is about?
It's already listed online. It's crazy.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's called Divine Masters, Ancient Wisdom. And it's a book about the Ascended Masters and the Masters of Ancient Wisdom. And I really wanted to write a book about the Masters that also spoke about some of the controversies around Ascended Master teachings and kind of shed a light on some of the shadow. So it's somewhat a bit of, investigation work, but also the book has 40 activations in it where I've channeled information from these universal guides.
Nice. Yeah. Could you share with us, like, could you give us an example of, say, a controversy or you know, a shadow area that you've elaborated on?
Yeah, I spoke about, well, I'm really interested in Helena Blavatsky. I'm not sure how much you know about her. I
know her name, but I don't know much about her.
So she kind of was the first person to ever speak about the Ascended Masters. Someone had spoke about the Council of Light in the 1400s, but apart from that, she's like one of the first kind of Westerners to really talk about these masters from the East. And basically she is the creator of the Theosophical Society, and she was born in Russia, and she was the first Western woman to travel to the East and search for spirit. Like, that's it. So she's influenced so many of us, all of us who are like, I'm going to India to find myself. She was the first Julia Roberts doing Eat, Pray, Love. Right? That's who she was. And she basically was a medium channeler, kind of an interesting woman, a great business person, I guess, who brought the masters of ancient wisdom to the world. So she was the first person to speak about like masters like El Morya or Kutumi, if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah.
And she basically had these letters from these masters, and we're not really sure if they were channeled, if they were apports, that's the way they were presented. And for a long time, the Society for Psychical Research had basically put her down as a fraud. But 100 years after she passed away, they actually said our reports and our investigation was flawed. We're not actually sure if she was a fraud. And the letters that she had from the masters are now held in the British Museum. So, I spoke a lot about these things and how, was she, just a great mind, or was she actually channeling these beings from another world and trying to present it in a way where people could fathom it? Because, the idea of these letters appearing out of the air is kind of wow.
Yeah.
But was she actually writing them? So it's pretty fascinating. She's the first person to ever write about the Akashic records. Like, that came directly from those letters. And so all of us have been influenced by this great teacher, but yet don't know the source. So I wrote a lot about that.
That's great. That's great. So you're submitting by September, which means what, about a year later it will come out?
It'll be coming out in April, believe it or not.
That's quick. For traditional publishing houses, that's great. That's great. Great.
Yeah. I like the deadline thing. It works for me. It was supposed to be a little bit later, but because we're not traveling as much, more space has opened up. And I was supposed to be in California right now.
I know, we'd have been here in person, but yeah. Hey, at least the technology works. So it's interesting. You mentioned, this great woman who has influenced so many of us, and it leads me back to something that I left untouched in the earlier part of our conversation, which is your grandmother and your mother.
Right.
So in an email to me, you referred to your mom as your momager. And that's kind of cool, when we know the origin of her with her 4.5-year-old boy kind of going, what's going on? How great that now here we are, you're 32 and she's your momager. And two things. I guess I would love to talk about your mom a little bit. And I was also curious how present your grandmother is with you today, like how much you feel her around you. Because as soon as we came on the call, I was like, oh, this is grandmother. It's like she's so here with you. I was curious about that. So choose one of those great ladies to start talking about first.
I think I'll talk about my Nana first. I still call myself a Nana's boy. So even though she passed away, 28 years ago, there's still like this. It feels, I speak about her like she's here, like she's part of the whole unfolding. Like, I'm not a vegan, just so you know. But my mum went to the butcher's today, and she brought me up the meat that my grandmother used to make, and I was like, "Well, it's just the way my nana likes it." I just like have these conversations as if she's still very present. So, yeah, very much a big part of my life and my world, and feel very connected to her, without a doubt. And there's just like little things that my grandmother had that I have, and like she loved shopping. She'd just buy anything because she could buy it, and she loved the Queen, which is another thing which I just can't help but love the Queen because she loved the Queen.
Have you watched The Crown?
Yeah,
we're very late to that party. We just started this week. Yeah, this week. I don't know why, but now I'm all over it. But
it's so good, isn't it?
You met the Queen? It's amazing. I'm loving Helena Bonham Carter as well. I wish she was in it more. Anyway, hopefully next season.
Good.
Yeah. But have you met the Queen?
No, have you?
Let's hope you managed to squeeze that in. Let's hope. Let's put
That would
that
be
out there.
so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That
But
is
no,
cool.
I haven't. I haven't.
You see
I've
the
been close to them, but I haven't met them.
Have you? Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. We grew up just outside Windsor, so they change carriages for Ascot and stuff. So one time me and my family were there, and I was amazed how close you could get. I was like, this seems very like if anyone, anyway, I won't go down that road, but
They've probably got force fields and stuff.
probably. But so your nana and then your mum. So tell me about your mum and her
My
role in
mum,
everything that you do.
my mother is an amazing woman. We've just, been so tight, such a great friendship, a great supporter, very much part of everything I do, still loves to be part of it. So she came up today and she lives about 45 minutes away. But she works for my business now. She just like does business and accounts in my diary. And she's very much involved in just the day-to-day running. But she worked in the airport for 20 years. Like that was her job. She worked in VIP services, looking after like celebs and all these different things. And then my mum had a health scare. She got breast cancer a few years ago. And it really took a lot of the wind out of her sails and she lost her confidence. And I know she's okay with me sharing this because she let me share her story online to help other people. And when my mum decided she was going to go rogue, she wasn't going to follow traditional health, like the health system. She was going to go rogue and do her own healing journey. I said to her, "Do you want to leave the airport then? Like, because I've totally got the assets and the income to be able to bring you on board and become part of this." And she was like, "Okay, I feel good about that." So my mum decided to leave the airport after 20 years and come on our business and become a bigger part of it.
So it's just been the last few years, really.
Yeah, she's always been a bigger part of my journey, like always front row, all my talks, but obviously business has changed a lot in the last 5 years, I'd say, and there's been a real acceleration and a shift of, I guess the internet's a big part to do with that. And so my mum became more involved in the business, and it's been really cool just to see her be able to flourish, but also be able to not be so stressed about life. And I actually paid off my mum's mortgage last week, which was a big like goal. So that was so cool.
That's great.
Yeah. But yeah, very strong relationship. My mum's very psychic.
Yeah.
Very psychic. She literally will close her eyes and will see everything.
And did she know that when she was younger, or is that something that's developed for her?
So my mum's grandmother was a tea leaf reader.
You've got a lineage.
I do. And my grandmother held seances in our house.
Right.
So there's like a bit of a thing. And my mum's sister, who passed away last year, is she, maybe it was this year. She also used to dabble when she was younger, but she became a Christian and decided it wasn't for her. But it was so cool that there's definitely evidence around that.
That's great. That's great. And it's funny too, because my mom, I was very close to my nan. She died 20 years ago now. Yeah, 20 years ago. And I still feel her around all the time. And I know she was deeply intuitive, but she was a very quiet woman. She was very nonverbal, but there was so much. I mean, she was an amazing woman. And so much I wish I could talk to her about now on a human level, but, I have other conversations with her. My mom is very intuitive, and she has started to own that more in the last decade. And I think in a weird way, me doing this weird job that for my family was a bit left field, 15 years ago, kind of helps. I think that's the truth for any of us, whether it's a relative or, I think, like I said earlier, this stuff is getting more normalized. And so the more people talk about it and it's just kind of in the air and just seen as a part of our life, whether you are a tea leaf reader or whether you're just someone who goes, oh yeah, I have these feelings that this person's going to call me, and then there they are, you know. So it's just that level of intuition is definitely heightening on the planet. And I think that's also why, you know, we were saying before the call, we both started in 2004. What a different time around all of this stuff. Now it's kind of unbelievable, isn't it? How much more normalized the kind of work we do is in the world.
Yeah. It's just, I think there really has been a shift of consciousness, but I also think that there's two sides to it. I think it's cool to be spiritual now. You know, we are in the age of the woke. You know, everyone's becoming woke, as they call it. So it's kind of like it's cool to be spiritual, and you can walk into stores and find crystal necklaces anywhere now. And so there's this, but I actually think sometimes it's okay to come in from a level of vanity, because I think if you read about it enough and study this stuff enough, then eventually you're going to have some sort of experience, or you're going to open up. There's going to be a shift that happens, you know. So I think that, but I also get this sense that genuinely, I just think the world is craving so much more truth. You know, I think we just want integrity. You know, we want it from our world leaders, so we have to find it in ourselves. Like, I think that's so important.
Yeah, and I think the kind of programming and conditioning of humanity that we all came up through feels like a very uncomfortable outfit now compared to maybe 20 years ago, when it was easier to tolerate it, or there were only certain people who wanted to kind of bust out of it. I think it's that's growing at such a rapid pace. So I'm curious, because, you know, part of my job is to kind of report on what's going on energetically every month. I mean, that's what I've been doing for so long, even though I'm amazed I'm still doing it. There were times I thought I'd stop, but now I'm kind of more on it than ever, I guess. I'm curious, do you have messages, conversations with the angels about the specifics of this shift in consciousness that we're in right now in this time?
So every month I do a call for my angel team, and we kind of speak about the angels. Often just kind of give guidance or energies that we can step into in order to kind of feel comfortable or be able to navigate through these times.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I've got a diary and I write it all down and I look back on it, and I was looking at it today, and they kept talking about how this was a time to reclaim the lost aspects of the self. You know, like everything that you felt embarrassed to own in the past, or felt like you shouldn't be doing, or all the parts of your gifts or your abilities that you've kind of pushed down in yourself. Now is the time to claim them. And it was funny, one of the things I was speaking about recently, I shared it with Gabby Bernstein as well on her show, that the angels keep saying this same line to me all the time. The best time to change is when change is happening around you. And that's like the thing I keep coming back to, is like, I think this is the change the world has been waiting on. But it's never going to unfold unless we make the changes that we also have to, you know, to make in our own lives. So I keep saying to everyone, if there's something that you feel like you're supposed to change, like, make sure you do it now, because it feels like this is the gateway, the window, the opening that is allowing us to kind of step into a newer age, a different time, you know?
Yeah.
But it was also like, I had this dream. I have dreams a lot. And the angels showed me the earth having a detox. And it was like, in order for her to release impurities, we have to become aware of them. And it felt to me that that's what a lot of the stuff happening in the earth was about, that the impurities are rising up to the surface, you know, and they're kind of like these zits that we can pop.
Yeah. Just in case, I don't know if zits in America is the same thing, I'm not sure, but spots like acne, you know, just.
Yeah, I think Americans say zits because I've been Americanized. I think so.
Cool, okay, cool.
I think I've been going to the US for so long that I actually say American words.
That's the problem I have now. Having lived here for 8 years, I never quite know which word to use. Like, because I have to translate certain words. It sounds insane because it's the same language, but there are so many words that really mean very different things here than they do in the UK. It's interesting you said all that because it's so, I always think that for any of us getting messages, whether we, like you and I do, put those things out publicly or whether it's just privately, I always find it fascinating how in sync all the different messages are. And, you were just talking about the cleanse, and we're recording this mid-August, so it probably won't come out for a little while, but we're recording it mid-August, and one of the themes for this month was really getting deep into this cleanse and this purge time on the planet. And the thing that you said about change, the one thing that the Z's, my guides who I channel, said several months ago when there was a recording I did called The Activation of Planetary Awakening. And they basically said 2020 to 2030, here we go. It's take no prisoners time. So if you're not willing to awaken, you will be dragged into it. Meaning it's going to be a very uncomfortable time to go through if you haven't yet woken up to your true nature and living a bigger life, whatever that looks like to you, whether that's, being more mindful of your soul, or whether you never think about the word soul or spirituality, but you suddenly find the freedom of expression that perhaps got suppressed in your childhood, basically just bringing your full self to bear on your life. And that's what's going on for the whole planet. So it's like deeply uncomfortable at times and edgy at other times, and then really exciting and enlightening. And, it's the roller coaster depending on what position of the ride you're on and how calibrated you are to those speed bumps,
It's funny you say all that, because I think the other thing that I've noticed recently is, I don't know if you felt this, but I feel like I know my role now, like more than ever. For a long time, I thought, my life and my work would look like a specific thing, but now it feels so clear. Like I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. And, and it feels like that awareness has shifted a lot in me, like I know my work is centered at beginner's mind. I'm supposed to get people started, I know that my work is easy digestible. Like I want to just find someone who's never found spirituality before and kind of like welcome them in. Like I know that's my role, and I feel like that's what the angels, the topic of angels, the interest in angels, it's a safe space for many people.
It's true. It is, isn't it?
Yeah, and it feels like approachable, and the idea that these beings love us so much because they do, and we've all heard of them. It's not out there. It's not too far away. Like that awareness has only came to me this year. Like that feels so clear.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because something that really struck me, it was a few years ago when I was talking to different publishers about the book I was going to release, and one of the publishers was Hay House.
Yeah, I fought over that. Nah, I was like, why is this guy not with us? Like, he's our people.
Yeah, no, I actually loved the meeting I had with them. But yeah, I was reading about Hay House, and it really blew my mind that Doreen Virtue, when I was reading the kind of the stuff about Hay House and who they were, and I mean, of course, I knew who they were, but I was looking at it a little deeper because of the book. Doreen Virtue was the biggest selling
author ever.
And why that blew my mind was I immediately just linked it to angels, and I thought, isn't that interesting? Because there's so much out there. Hay House has so many authors, and other publishing companies do too. Great stuff all over the place. And it struck me. I thought, how interesting that's in a way the acceptable face of spirituality and a great spiritual entry point. I mean, it makes sense, but I was just struck by it because it wasn't anything I'd considered before.
Pretty incredible. Yeah. Pretty incredible. And to consider that Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, sold over 100 million copies. So just to bring that into the picture is kind of like, whoa, okay, there was a lot of books in distribution there,
Yeah. And her book was really important for me. I'll confess I never fully read all the chapters, but I I'm a bit like that with books. It's weird. I'll have the books around me because I know that having the title and the book in my presence energetically is doing something. Like I've always been like that, and it's weird. It's almost like I'll have the book in my presence and something will integrate. But I used her energy dictionary a lot, like from the age of like 22 to 27, anything that was going on. What does this mean? So I really credit her and that book with being a big part of my training around really beginning to understand, define, and tap into energy diagnosis. Because at that point, I was still an apprentice, really. So, yeah.
Louisa's amazing. She would love you.
I'd love to have met her.
Louise Hay was so cool. Like, I was so lucky to get to hang out with her, and to meet her several times and to be in her company. She was incredible. But that was something that was really important to me, that becoming a member of the Hay House family and like falling into that lineage. When I learned that Louise Hay started her work as like an AIDS counselor and to create this whole movement
work.
Right, I was just like, she's my woman.
Yeah.
And it's like she has like the best gaydar in the planet, because as soon as a gay man comes in, she's just like awesome. It's really cool. That's awesome. As soon as she saw me, she just went straight for like kisses and like doing all this, and it was very funny.
Awesome. But just to circle back to what you said about purpose, one of the things that was coming through me a lot on stage in 2016 and 2017, when I would channel messages for audiences or online in my portal community and stuff, this repeated message, you are needed and now is your time. Like I almost got bored of it and embarrassed of it, because it was like, oh God, we can't say this again. Especially because I knew certain people were like showing up at multiple things. But there was this, I'd never felt such a kind of intensity around that message. And then a message that I have personally experienced as true, and I've seen come true for so many people I know. They said that in the coming years, you will, and this started about 2017. I think I was doing an event for alternatives in London when this first came through, and then it came through multiple times over the course of the next year to 18 months. They said, you think the planet feels unstable now in 2017? They were like, give it a few years, because it's going to get worse. And they said, but as things destabilize, more of you are going to stabilize. They said, and it doesn't mean you won't have compassion or, you won't have empathy for the suffering that you might see for certain people or the difficulties you might see for certain people. They said, it won't make you immune to that. But they said, for many of you, you're going to live on purpose in a way you have never experienced before, because this is the time you were built for. And I have seen that from everybody, and it doesn't even relate to like the job you do in the world. I've just seen that in people I know whose work is really raising their family, but the level of certainty they've got, who they are for their family, who they are with their community, something has kicked in for a whole group of people that, like you said, it's like there is this certainty of purpose now. And it's like, oh, there's a lot of work to be done, quote unquote work, because sometimes that looks like work and sometimes that's not work at all. It's just the energy you're in or the random conversation you have with a stranger. There's just a lot to be galvanized in this unstable time. And it's very purposeful work. And a lot of people have like activated.
Yeah, totally. I think work is the key word, like I think a lot of us would just love it to be all shiny, happy all the time, but it genuinely requires action, it requires us to really show up. And I don't think I realized how much work was entailed doing this work until it's become my work, and completely. I think from the outside in, people can see, because for me, having a spiritual life is also a very lavish life. I have a very nice life, and I'm not shy about speaking about that, and it looks really cool, and we're traveling around the world and doing all these things, but there's also there's a lot of graft that comes with that, and there's a lot of commitment, and all of the stuff that comes up when you're doing this work is a commitment in itself, and but I'm so grateful to be doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I was really struck by, because I loved creating since being a little kid, but whenever I'm talking to people, and I used to do this a lot in personal sessions, and now if it's a group I'm running or just a friend or someone I meet, the thing that you have to get over if you want to make something happen is you have to be willing to do what I would call the grunt work, which I actually love now. But I think often, especially when you're a visionary or a spiritual visionary, whenever anybody tells me about this vision they've had, I'm always kind of like, okay, cool. And they're like in the euphoria of the vision. And I'm like, and if I see them 3 months later and they're still in the euphoria of the vision, it's because the hardest part is bringing that vision down to earth, running it through your body, running it through your personality and all your isms and schisms, trying to build something in the world and see whether it's flowing and see whether it's flowing for everybody and harmonizing it. That's where the real work is. The spiritual vision is like the little romance moment that's lovely, really, and that seeds everything. But like you, I used to love that stuff. And now that stuff's just a given. And that's like the top of the drip feed. And actually the kind of on the ground, how do we apply this and what do we learn as we do it? And what healing comes up for me or for the person I'm doing it with, or that has become more fascinating the older I've got.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah. So
good to be on Earth though.
Oh yeah, I'm with you there. And I have a question for you then. So I would say I'm happier than I've ever been this last few years on Earth. Yeah, there were great moments, there were great times, but just in my feeling of being on Earth, even with all the tumult that's going on, I would say I feel more landed on the planet than ever before. Is that true for you too?
Definitely, and I think there's a genuine love for the Earth. I think that has also become so clear. Like, I love this planet and I want it to evolve, and so I'm going to do everything I can, in order to support that. But I genuinely feel that, I know this sounds crazy, but I know there's a lot of weird things been happening on the planet, and I guess there's a little bit of privilege that comes into it. Like, I'm lucky to be where I am and doing what I do and living where I live and all these different things like that. That's genuinely there, but the world hasn't really shifted that much for me or changed that much for me, other than I don't travel. Like, I've always lived in this little bubble of, my whole business has been online for years, so nothing really changed for me. Yeah. My whole team worked remotely. I always lived alone. I worked from home. It just felt normal, and it felt like, is there a reason for that? And I was like, maybe that's what it is. Like, maybe this is stable so that I can be more stable for other people. There's not been dramatic changes in my life, and so it felt easier to hold space for others because I was already adapted to what was going on.
Yeah, totally.
That's just my own thing. I don't think that's for the world, but I think I genuinely have been a better source of service, and like, we were able to run free trainings over the lockdown period, and we had like 5,000 people there, and just like the fact that this was already all set up, Zoom gave us an upgrade for free. Like, there was all these things that felt, perfectly aligned, so I could be of better service. So just things like that, really.
Do you miss the travel, Kyle? Like, have you missed that?
No.
No, nor me. It's kind of a revelation, isn't it? I'm like, I'm going to travel.
I miss one thing, and it's I miss going to Nobu, which is my favorite restaurant.
Right. The one here, where?
I've not been to the one near you, but I in London and in LA. Right. But I like, my one favorite thing is, my favorite restaurant in the world is going to Nobu.
Right. Okay.
So I get to go there like twice or three times a year, and I haven't had that this year.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, I don't miss the travel either. I miss the people at our events, because I always love those connections, and especially like the meet and greets at the end, where you never get much time if there's a lot of people, but you just get a moment to meet people. But I don't miss the disruption of the travel, and I've heard that from other people too, like people who don't even travel perhaps as much as we do, that what they've found and discovered through being rooted. And at the same time, I feel a lot for people who have really struggled with that. I've got friends and people that I know who like live alone, And it's been a bit of a dark night of the soul for them. And some of them are coming out of it now, and it's making them feel differently about what they want next and to create their life differently. Like one of them I'm thinking of specifically, it's jarred her into realizing she wants to commit. For her, it's important to find a relationship. And she's been very on the fence about it for a long time. And now she's coming out the gate going, yeah, I want something. So it's so fascinating to see how personal and individual this transformation has been for everybody in their different circumstances. And then, of course, the global healing that's occurring in so many areas. I mean, it's mind-blowing, really.
Sometimes I feel really blessed to also know so many people that do this work. And I also feel glad that I've been doing it a little bit longer than other people, like online. And so, like, you know, I consulted a lot of like longtime friends and author buddies who were used to traveling, you know, 300 days of the year, and I was speaking to their teams and helping them get set up online so they could keep doing their work, you know. And because I think it's important, like I think the world needs us all, and you know, and I think that we just have to be willing to show up and do things differently. And you know, but travel's great. The world is a beautiful thing, but there's no place like home.
It's true. So Kyle, I could talk to you for hours, clearly, but we are probably going to have to draw it to a close. So let me ask you a kind of final question, pithy question, but I have a feeling you'll have a profound answer, no pressure. What are you excited about in the coming years? And let's frame it two ways. What are you excited about globally for the world in the coming years? Like, what do you feel coming in for the world that feels good to you? And what are you excited about for yourself and what you're doing in the world in the coming years?
Okay. Globally, I'm excited about the rise of the divine feminine. It's going to be so cool to live in an age where we see female world leaders like that. That's coming in. So I can feel that. And I also, you know, I'm so grateful to be alive when there's a rise in social justice. Like, I just want to acknowledge that. So I think it's going to be so cool to actually live in a world where equal opportunity is becoming possible. Like, that's my excitement for the world. So that. And the other thing, for me personally, I think it's just about arriving more and becoming more comfortable being me. And I just bought a house in nature, so I'm moving at the end of the year to like this nice house and my dream home, I guess.
Beautiful. Are you still in Scotland?
Yeah, Scotland, just 20 minutes out of the city.
Nice.
And you know, like rolling fields and deer and foxes. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to just being able to set up a space to call home and enjoy that. Like that. I'm honestly just open to anything else that happens, but I've not really made any more plans other than that, just to arrive more and to be at home in myself wherever I am.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Carl, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for being you and doing what you do and just sharing a little bit with us about what you're doing, why you're doing it. And I have no doubt inspiring some other people who will have had some light bulb moments to do what they're doing in the world because of your journey. So thank you.
Thank you for doing what you're doing. It's a pleasure. Hope we can meet up for an OBA at some point.
We will. We'll be in the UK very soon. So we definitely will. Right. That'd be great. Thanks so much, Carl. Big love.
Thank you.
As we continue to navigate these very changing times on Earth, I'm really happy to be bringing back transmissions. This is my summer channeled online experience, now in its third year. Every year is unique, just as the last few years have brought radical changes to all of our lives. This year, the theme is Elevate Your Vibration. My guides have given me 4 sets of themes which they want to deliver across 4 live broadcasts. The beauty of being live together for each broadcast is I get to be in person with your community energy. But if you can't make it live, don't worry. Everything will be video replayed, archived, and you'll have lifetime access to the material. The themes we will be looking at each week are allowing abundance and presence into and through you, cultivating joy, love, and peace, and creating with those in the world, integrating new levels of clarity, awareness, and healing with ease, and finally, rising into your highest purpose on earth. You can experience it as a healing, a shift, an inspiration, and many of our past participants have talked about the impact it has had on their lives and their year ahead. To support you through the journey of the course, you will have access to a private community forum away from social media so you can share with other participants. There will be written transcripts of each broadcast that will accompany the replays. Stephen Washington will be bringing a special Qigong sequence to the course. We have a series of video and audio integration support tools from me and members of my team. And lastly, a 10-track downloadable compilation music album from artists at Golden World Music. To check out more details about this experience and to see if it's for you, you can visit my website leeharrisenergy.com or use the link underneath this video. If it resonates with you, we would love to welcome you to join us for Transmissions 2022.